The first human the Veyari ever met was dying, and the last thing Commander Tarek wanted to do was save him. The object had appeared on the edge of the Veyari system without warning. It was not a ship in any recognizable sense. There were no active weapons, no communication signals, no navigation lights, just a dark, broken vessel drifting through the cold between worlds. The Veyari patrol cruiser Resolute Dawn had been ordered to investigate. Captain Tarek stared at the tactical display. Any response? Nothing, Captain. Life signs. The sensor officer hesitated. One, Tarek looked up. One biological life sign. The bridge became quiet. Their civilization had been fighting the Car Dominion for 11 years. Everyone knew what unidentified ships meant. Sometimes they were refugees, sometimes they were traps, and sometimes they were weapons. Tarek folded his arms, scanned for explosives. Already done. Boarding pods? None. Transmit a warning. The communications officer sent the message. This is a Veyari military vessel. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Nothing, again nothing. Tarek sighed. Prepare a recovery team. His first officer turned toward him. Captain, regulations. I know the regulations. We don't know what it is. We know there's someone alive inside. The officer lowered his voice. And if it's a Dominion infiltrator? Tarek stared at the damaged vessel. Then we'll deal with that when he's alive enough to cause trouble. They docked. The recovery team entered through a torn section of hull. Inside, the ship was dead. No gravity, no atmosphere, no lights. The corridors were covered in frozen debris. They moved deeper. Then one of the soldiers stopped. Captain Tarek approached. The soldier pointed toward a sealed compartment. Something had scratched a message into the metal. 3 words, don't leave me. Tarek felt something unpleasant tighten in his chest. Open. The door resisted. The soldiers cut. Through it, inside was a small chamber, and lying on the floor was a creature none of them had ever seen. 2 arms, 2 legs, dark hair, pale skin, blood covering one side of his body. He wore a torn black uniform. Tarek approached. Cautiously, the creature opened his eyes. For several seconds, neither moved. Then the human whispered something. Tarek leaned closer. What did he say? The translator struggled. Finally, it produced a rough interpretation. Home. Then the human passed out. The Veyari had no idea what a human was. Their doctors had no reference data. The creature's bones were denser than expected. His muscles were unusually developed. His heart was beating far too quickly. And despite losing an alarming amount of blood, he refused to die. For 3 days, the medical team worked on him. They repaired his ribs, stopped the internal bleeding, rebuilt damaged tissue. They even had to design an emergency blood substitute because his blood chemistry was unlike anything in their medical database. On the 4th day, the human opened his eyes. A female Veyari doctor was sitting beside him. You're awake. The human looked around. Where am I? The translator converted his words. You are aboard the Resolute Dawn. He stared at her. Who are you? I am Dr. Sarah. The human swallowed. My name is Daniel. Dr. Sarah smiled. Daniel. He tried to sit up. Pain immediately forced him back down. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't. Luis. Daniel looked at the unfamiliar room. Then he asked the question that would change the Veyari. Civilization forever. Is Earth safe? Sarah frowned. What is Earth? Daniel's expression changed. You don't know? No. He closed his eyes. For the first time since waking, fear appeared on his face. Then I'm very far from home. Daniel remained aboard the Resolute Dawn for nearly 6 weeks. During that time, the Veyari learned about humans. They learned that humans came from a world called Earth, a world with oceans, mountains, forests, deserts, and billions of people. Daniel was a military pilot. His ship had been part of a reconnaissance mission when something had attacked them. He didn't know what. He didn't know who. His ship had been damaged and thrown thousands of light years off course. His entire squadron was gone. He was the only survivor. But there was something Daniel refused to discuss. His mission. One evening, Captain Tarek found him standing beside the observation window. You haven't slept, Daniel shrugged. I'm used to it. You're still recovering. I know, Tarek stood beside. You've been hiding something, Daniel smiled faintly. You Veyari are pretty observant. We're soldiers. So am I, Tarek waited. Finally, Daniel said, the thing that attacked us wasn't random. What was it? We don't know. Then how can you be certain? Because it followed us. Tarek's expression hardened. Followed you here? Daniel turned. I don't know. That was the first time Tarek truly understood the danger. The Veyari had not merely rescued a stranger. They might have rescued a beacon. 2 weeks later, the answer arrived. The Car Dominion fleet entered the system. Hundreds of ships, then thousands. The Veyari defense network screamed warnings across every planet. Tarek rushed to the bridge. How many? The tactical officer stared at the display. Too many. How long? 40 minutes. Tarek looked toward Daniel. The human was already there. He had insisted on coming to the bridge. That's them, Daniel said. Tarek looked at him. You recognize the ships? Yes. Who are they? Daniel's jaw tightened. The reason my people are fighting a war. The car fleet opened fire. The first orbital defense station disappeared in a sphere of white light. Then another and another. The Veyari fleet launched. For 6 hours, the system burned. Daniel watched silently. The Veyari were brave, but bravery wasn't enough. Their ships were simply outnumbered, one by one. The defense fleet collapsed. Tarek received the final report. Planetary shield is at 30%. How many ships remain? 32. Tarek closed his eyes. They had started with 400. Daniel stepped forward. Captain, Tarek turned. I need access to your communications network. Why? Because I might be able to send a message. To whom? Earth. Tarek stared at him. You think Earth can help? Daniel looked at the burning planet below. I don't know. Then he smiled. But I know one thing. What? My people don't leave their own behind. Daniel transmitted the message. It crossed the stars. For nearly 4 hours, nothing happened. The Veyari continued fighting. Their cities evacuated underground. Their military collapsed. The Car Dominion demanded unconditional surrender. Tarek refused. Then the Veyari moon was destroyed. Millions died. The surviving fleet retreated. Daniel stood beside Tarek on the bridge. I'm sorry, Tarek didn't answer. Then the communications officer shouted, Captain! What? We have an incoming transmission. From the Dominion? No? Then who? The officer looked confused. It's from Earth. Daniel froze. Put it through. Human voice filled the bridge. This is United Earth Defense Command, Daniel stepped forward. This is Lieutenant Daniel. Reyes silenced, then Lieutenant Reyes. Authentication confirmed. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Earth. It's been a long time. We know. How did you find me? We've been looking for you for 9 months. Daniel laughed softly. I thought I was lost. You were. A pause. Until the Veyari found you. Tarek looked at Daniel. Then the transmission continued. Lieutenant, we have received your coordinates. Daniel swallowed. What are you going to do? The voice answered calmly. We're coming. The Car Dominion believed the war was already over. They were wrong. 3 hours after Earth's message, long-range sensors detected something beyond the edge of the system. At first, the Veyari believed it was another Dominion fleet. Then the sensor operator whispered. Captain. Tarek approached. What? There are ships. How many? The operator stared at the display. I don't know. Estimate. 20,000. The bridge fell. Silent Daniel slowly smiled. That's impossible. Tarek looked at him. You said Earth had a military, Daniel shook his head. I said Earth had a military. The first human fleet emerged from hyperspace. Then another. The sky filled with ships, huge carriers, fast attack, craft.battlecruisers.drone, swarms.orbital platforms, and at the center of the formation was one enormous vessel, the UNS Resolute. Its captain opened a system-wide transmission. This is Admiral Mara Reyes of United Earth Defense, so the Dominion fleet responded with laughter. You are entering car-controlled space, the Admiral replied. No, a pause. You are standing in the space of people who saved one of ours. The car commander laughed again. And what exactly do you intend to do? Admiral Reyes answered, repay the debt, then Earth opened fire. The battle lasted 11 minutes. The Dominion had more ships, more weapons, more experience. But the humans had something the car had never encountered, adaptability. Their ships changed formation. Constantly, they attacked from multiple vectors. They sacrificed smaller craft to protect civilian targets. They deliberately allowed damaged ships to survive so their crews could return to battle. And when the Dominion attempted to overwhelm them with sheer numbers, the humans simply changed the battlefield. They destroyed the system's jump gates, then the communication relays, then the Dominion's command ships. The car fleet began collapsing. Tarek watched in disbelief. They're not fighting like us, Daniel smiled. No, how are they fighting? Daniel looked at the enormous human fleet, like they're angry. But the war wasn't over. The car commander activated their final weapon, a planetary annihilation device, had been secretly positioned above the Veyari homeworld. If the Dominion could not conquer the planet, they would destroy it. The device began charging. Tarek received the report. Captain. His face went pale. Daniel immediately understood. How long? 4 minutes. The human fleet moved. Thousands of ships turned toward the weapon. The Dominion fleet surrounded it. Admiral Reyes opened a transmission. Tarek. Yes? We need you to evacuate your civilians. Why? We're going to destroy the weapon. There are thousands of enemy ships protecting it. We know. You can't reach it. Admiral Reyes paused. Captain Tarek. Yes? Your people saved our pilot. Tarek looked at Daniel. We're not losing your world. The human fleet charged. Daniel watched from the Veyari bridge as human ships flew directly into the Dominion. Formation one after another. They disappeared, but more replaced them. The human attack never slowed. Tarek stared. They're sacrificing themselves. Daniel shook his head. No. What? They're buying time. For what? Daniel pointed toward the largest human carrier. That's... What? The carrier opened its launch bays. Thousands of small fighters emerged. They moved like a storm. They ignored the enemy fleet. They flew directly toward the planetary weapon. The Dominion tried to stop them, but the fighters were too fast. One reached the weapon, then another, then hundreds. They attached explosive charges to the weapon's outer armor. The Dominion commander screamed over the communication network, "Destroy them!" Too late. The human fighters detonated. The planetary weapon shattered. Fragments burned through the atmosphere. The Veyari world survived, but the battle continued. The car fleet finally broke. Their ships fled. Human ships pursued them to the edge of the system. Then Admiral Reyes ordered, "Hold." The Veyari couldn't understand why the humans had won. Why not destroy the enemy? Admiral Reyes transmitted to the Dominion commander. "You have lost." The car commander replied, "You could destroy us." "Yes." "Then why don't you?" The Admiral answered, "Because we're not here to become you." The Dominion fleet withdrew 3 days later. The Veyari homeworld was silent, not because it was dead, because millions of survivors had gathered in the capital. They stood in the streets as human soldiers entered the cities. There were no cheers at first. The Veyari simply watched. The humans looked exhausted. Their armor was damaged. Their ships were scarred. Many carried the symbols of fallen comrades. Then Tarek stepped forward. Daniel stood beside him. Tarek looked at the human admiral. "Why did you come?" Admiral Reyes looked around. "Because you saved one human." Tarek shook his head. "That doesn't justify an entire fleet. It does to us. You lost ships. Yes. Soldiers. Yes. Thousands of lives." Admiral Reyes looked at Daniel. "Your people gave us something more valuable than lives." "What?" "Proof." "Proof of what?" "That kindness can cross species." Tarek said nothing. Then Daniel stepped forward. He removed the Veyari medical emblem from his uniform. The emblem had been given to him by Dr. Sarah. He handed it to, Tarek. I was dying when you found me. Accepted it. You saved my life. Daniel looked toward the city, and today, humanity saved yours. Tarek smiled. Then I suppose we're even. Daniel shook his head. No. Tarek raised an eyebrow. We're not? Daniel looked toward the sky. Human ships were still. Arriving. Not warships, hospital. Ships. Engineering vessels, construction. Fleets, agricultural carriers. Human scientists. Doctors. Teachers. Rescue. Teams thousands upon thousands, Daniel smiled. We don't repay debts by making them. Even. Tarek looked confused. How do you repay them? Daniel answered. By making sure they never have to be repaid again. 6 months later, the Veyari homeworld began to cover. Human engineers rebuilt damaged cities. Human doctors trained Veyari. Physicians. Human scientists helped restore poisoned. Human soldiers remained in orbit, not as occupiers, but as guardians. The Veyari learned something unexpected about humanity. Humans remembered. They remembered kindness. They remembered betrayal. They remembered every friend, and sometime they remembered a single person. 1 year after the war, Captain Tarek received a message from Earth. It contained a simple request. He opened it. The message read, To the Veyari people, you saved one of ours when you had no reason to. You didn't know our language. You didn't know our history. You didn't know whether we deserved your help. You helped. Anyway, humanity remembers. If you ever need us again, we will come. Tarek read the message twice. Then he looked toward the stars. For thousands of years, the Veyari had believed survival belonged to the strongest. Now, they understood something different. Sometimes, survival belonged to those who were willing to save someone. Weaker, because somewhere beyond the stars that kindness might come back, not as payment, not as obligation, but as friendship. 20 years later, the galaxy would remember the Veyari war differently. Historians would call it the conflict that introduced humanity to the wider galaxy. Military scholars would study the 11-minute battle. Politicians would debate Earth's decision to spare the retreating car. Fleet. Generals would analyze human tactics for generations. But the Veyari remembered something much simpler. They remembered a broken ship, a dying human, and one decision. Save him, that was all. One life, one act of kindness, one decision made by people who had no idea what would happen afterward. They didn't know the human belonged to a civilization capable of crossing thousands of light years. They didn't know humanity possessed fleets larger than their entire military. They didn't know the human race had a strange tradition of remembering favors for generations. They simply saw someone dying and they chose to help. Years later, when their entire world was threatened, stars filled with human ships, and the message from Earth was short, 3 words. You saved one. Then came the sentence that every civilization in the galaxy would eventually learn to fear and respect. We save all, and from that day forward, whenever a Veyari child asked their parents why humanity protected them, the answer was always the same. Because once, long ago, we saved one human. The child would usually ask, was he important? The parents would smile. No. Was he powerful? No. Was he a king? No. Then why did humans come? The parents would look toward the night sky and answer, he was theirs. And somewhere beyond that sky, human ships continued traveling between the stars, searching, exploring, building, protecting. Because humanity had learned something. Long before it reached the stars, a debt of kindness was never measured by the size of the favor. It was measured by the size of the heart willing to remember it, and humanity remembered everything.